Not all fantasy series start strong, but these book ones hit like a warhammer.
Readers,
reviewers,
countrymen,
lend us your ears.
And a huge thank you to all of our Patreons.
Thank you to the Pit Fighters, the First Swords, and all of the Bright Stars, Truth and Courage.
Hello and welcome to the channel today. Of course, as the title suggests and the opening, we're talking about the best book ones of the fantasy series that we've read.
Yeah, if you've had enough of people saying, you know guys, at book 6 it gets really good, you know, you've got to read 3,500 pages, and then you will start to enjoy the series, then this is the video for you, because I'm one of you. I'm sick of that too.
Yes, so am I, because I think the first job, or the main job, of a fantasy series of book one is to hook you so hard you cancel your plans for the next week. So these are ones that I wanted to just hide away in my room to read the sequel and to finish the first one as well. And so a lot of these we've both read, we've kind of argued and went to war over who gets to talk about which one, but inevitably we'll just waffle about everything. Yeah. And so let's kick it off, Ed. We won't kick and down each of the books, but we'll kick it in your direction.
Should we do the first one together?
Yeah.
Which of course... There is a caveat with this channel that we like to mention a certain someone who is Papa Gwynne.
But this is not because of bias.
No.
You know, because I probably, because of sentimentality, prefer Malice. The Faith and Fallen, book one. But I think, objectively, I'd say The Shadow of the Gods is probably a better written book in terms of the pacing is just perfect. Yeah. The characters are instantly standard. You can tell the direction the story is going. So, you know, if you like this, you will adore everything.
Yeah, I think it's a stronger book. The pacing, as Will said, is so quick. The characters is much less kind of you know, number of characters in general. The world
easier
building,
to immerse yourself.
The world building is pretty intense, but it's on a level that's very accessible, I think, to a lot of other people. And I just think it's such a fantastic start to the series, and it promises some big things. And when, you know, big things are in the shape of gods, then hopefully the latter two books hit hard, and they definitely do.
How much is Papa Gwynne paying us to say this?
£45 this time.
Wow.
Yeah,
that'd be good. We can go for a meal then. Very nice.
Exactly. Your expensive date, Will. Of course, we all need more David Gemmell on BookTube. But David Gemmell's Sword in the Storm is probably his best book.
Agreed.
A lot of people start with Legend, but I would say the best book by David Gemmell is Sword in the Storm. It's a Celtic-inspired fantasy book inspired by the Iceni, aka Boudicca's tribe, fighting against the Roman invasion. And, you know, chuck that into a fantastical setting, mixed in with some Celtic mythology, that sums David Gemmell up. This book is crazy, crazy good. It starts off so quickly. David Gemmell, I always say, is one of the fastest paced reads I'll ever read. I always binge his books whenever I pick them up. I physically cannot stop myself. And then I just want to talk to everyone about it because, like, I'm just so immersed in this read. This is the story of Conovar, a youth growing up, and he is destined for great things. There is kind of a chosen one trope here, which I absolutely love.
Possibly my favourite rendition of the favourite one trope. It's up there.
Yeah, the chosen one.
Top 3.
Yeah. Top 10 at the very least. But Conovar's journey as he is in his tribe and he's trying to become the man he is destined to be, and then he leaves his people to go and do something else. The way that David Gemmell writes him and the other characters around him, they're full of emotion, full of excitement, full of a spark, and his dialogue is so fantastic. And I always think, like, there's always one character in a David Gemmell book who is like such a fantastic role model for young men, and David Gemmell is, I think he was always inspired by, was it his stepfather?
His stepfather, yeah.
Who always inspired one character in every book to be like that. And these guys in these books always remind me of Papa Gwynne. Don't know about you, Will.
That's true.
But that maybe there is that kind of nostalgic feeling or that homely feeling. But David Gemmell writes with just such confidence, and the execution is, you know, it will cut your head off. So yeah, true. Love it.
Dangerous, but rewarding. Now, I've got one that doesn't need any introduction. It is Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb, book one of the Farseer trilogy. Summarised in a word, devastating. It's small and intimate, but it sets the stage for one of the greatest arcs known in fantasy, which grows in scale, not only in how well we know fits, but in how many characters are involved. And the growing agency. Yeah. Usually I don't enjoy stories as much when the main character has no agency. You feel it's a bit like they're just being dragged in random directions.
Yeah.
But then it's also hard in a lot of books where children are given agency, and it's like as if they could actually have control over decisions.
You're hard to please, Will.
This is a great balance where it mixes the characterization and growth with political intrigue and characterization and plot progression. It is wonderful. I think that Robin Hobb's kind of name for characterization actually overshadows other aspects of storytelling she is also incredible at, such as the political intrigue. Very different in terms of comparing it to a Game of Thrones, because that's about the political intrigue with different factions in very different areas, whereas this is all kind of focused in one keep.
Yeah.
Buck Keep. Great place, which we come to know very well. But yeah, this story is devastating, and we're basically following Fitz as terrible things happen to him, some through his own fault, in ways which is probably the only book where you kind of like enjoy like just following someone who, as they make terrible decisions, but in a way which is believable. Again, it is kind of very upsetting, but not jarring. And Robin Hobb is an exceptional writer, and I will never shut up about how much I love this series.
No, he won't. I keep trying to get him to stop, but no,
He won't win.
The Will of the Many, the excitement of the one. This book is probably the biggest booktube book for a long time. I mean, it's about 600 pages, but The Will of the Many is a great book one. It's book one of the Hierarchy series by James Islington. And although the rest of the series isn't out yet, book two's not even out yet, or a couple of arcs are in the wild, that I just know that this is a fantastic book one that will land with a lot of people, and that is what this video is for. I think there's a wide range of people that will get a lot out of The Will of the Many. Now, it is written in a style that is accessible to a lot of people, maybe kind of Brandon Sanderson-esque meets Red Rising, I would say. But James Islington, he has this Roman-style world building. He's very much influenced by the Roman period here. He has that, that character goes to school setting, which I absolutely love to read about. It can feel a bit YA at times, because the character is young and what they're doing is, they're going through the school setting. So I think it kind of comes with the territory. Red Rising at times feels a bit YA, doesn't it?
Yeah, but in a way which I think isn't kind of YA in what people often mean.
Yeah, what I mean is that you can read it at any age and you will enjoy it no matter what, I think. The Will of the Many, it's so exciting. There's so many twists and turns along the way. And James Islington paced it perfectly with, introducing a new character. There's a different dynamic. And then, a chapter later, you've got someone investigating something. And then you find out an answer. And then you find the answer was, a lie, and all that kind of stuff. There's always something at the end of every chapter. They end on a cliffhanger all the time, similar to Papa Gwynne's works as well, I think. But The Will of the Many, so exciting, and I cannot wait for book two.
And talking about ongoing series, do you ever want to pick up a fantasy book that just every single scene feels iconic? If you are, or if you've just realised you are, then you need to pick up Empire of the Vampire. And so the title kind of gives it away. It's about vampires. We've got a natural phenomenon has occurred called day's death. And so that means the sun does not shine quite as bright. And that means on top of kind of the natural disasters of crops not growing, as if it wasn't bad enough.
Less sunburn,
less sunburn, that's true, but vampires can now walk about during the day.
I mean, come on. Come on.
But it just feels so iconic. And from even the premise of something called Day's Death, even the name, I was like, whoa, I'm in.
Yeah, that's pretty
and
cool.
The first chapter is extraordinary. There's a moment in there of really subtle characterization which really just jumped out to me, and I thought, this guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Jade Kristoff is incredible at creating characters who, whilst have got many flaws, they're still very compelling and you enjoy following. And then you also come to realise where these flaws have manifested, and the sympathy and just the wave of emotions you feel throughout this book. Not only is it a roller coaster in the crazy events and the story the characters go through, but it's a roller coaster of emotions as well. Empire of the Vampire is utterly incredible. Shamefully, I've not read book 2 yet, but I will be soon. You already have. I trust you because you and Papa Gwynne both said it's even better than book 1, so I cannot wait. And it's perfect timing to jump on the bandwagon because book 3, Empire of the Dawn, comes out at the end of 2025.
You should be ashamed you haven't read book 2, and I think you should have someone following you down the street ringing some bells saying shame. And it's appropriate we're talking about that because the next one is
nice segue, Ed.
A Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin, book 1 of A Song of Ice and Fire. Now, obviously, we all know this book is one of the best fantasy books out there. It is well, it captured the world by storm, and that is because of how good.
And it just hasn't let go, has it?
It really hasn't let go whatsoever. This book has such a vast array of characters. It has people who you hate, you love, you're not sure how you feel about. People with a lot of mystery around them. There's a lot of unanswered questions, and there is some investigating that goes on in book one. There are some duels. There are big battles as well. There are family trees as long as your leg, which you love, Will, don't you?
I do love a good family tree.
It is superb, and it kind of shows off what fantasy can be. In the hands of someone who is a genius, really. Yeah. It's just done so well. All the houses. Obviously, we all know that lots of people have spoken about Game of Thrones, and they probably said some things far more eloquently than I. But I will say that it is such a ride, and you cannot stop reading it. It's full of excitement. It's one of the most immersive worlds that you can ever jump in, and I think there's always people, always characters, factions and animals as well that you can fall in love with, no matter what your tastes. And your taste might change over the years. You might think one day you might think Jon Snow is my favourite character, then the next day you might think Jaime Lannister. There's
so much to talk about, isn't there?
And there's no right or wrong answer. It is, everything is so great, and you are kind of a lot of the time left up to your own thoughts as well with this series, which I love that in a series where you're able to form your own opinions. And George R. R. Martin, he's just the messenger. He's just relaying what's happened in this world.
It's true. Some terrible things.
Yeah, lots of terrible things. But yeah, Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire, great book one. You got to read it.
Very nice, Ed. And next up, I've got a book which is called The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. One man's rage fuels this entire book. Yeah. It is fast-paced, revenge-driven, with a gladiator arc in there as well. What more could you ask for? Oh, wait, there's unique world-building, a society kind of set up with a strict hierarchy. And our main character Tao, is fighting against that. And so you've got a lot of different elements in here. You've got the big kind of epic story of different nations at war with each other. You've got the magical aspect. Of course, it's got dragons in it. In the title. I wonder if there'll be dragons in there. Maybe. But Tao is a force of nature. This is another one which is so fast-paced. I think it's a great beginner book for fantasy readers and also for veterans as well. If you want something that you don't really have to work hard at, it's really enjoyable, fantastic, but also easy to get into. And so it basically ticks every single box. And yeah, it's just incredible. The Rage of Dragons is a crazy journey, which I don't think even to this day I've read anything like it. It was one of my first book obsessions when I was really kind of exploring fantasy, and yeah, there's a lot of sentimentality attached to this, but also it's just fantastic.
It does the gladiator school trope so well. And I'm reading God's Grave by Jade Kristoff at the moment, and that book is doing it brilliantly as well. Are there any other gladiator style books that you've read before? There is one, but I cannot remember what it is right now.
I don't know either.
Empire of Silence, there is a gladiator sequence in as well. Yeah. But The Rage of Dragons is just so good. And the way that the character Tao trains, Evan Winter uses fantasy to do that so well. Yeah. Where he incorporates it there. So yeah, love Rage of Dragons, and it is a roller coaster.
It really is.
From the first page.
Please pick it up.
Please pick it up. If you are ever bored of, goblins in Dungeons and Dragons being the kind of the starter animal, when you've got 5 or 6 hit points, and you see, a couple of goblins, we'll sort them out, that's fine, easy peasy, lemon squeezy, then you need to read The Daughter's War, because that will turn goblins upside down.
You'll never think of them the same.
You will never think of them the same. The Daughter's War is one of the most incredible fantasy books I've ever read, and although it was written after its sequel, so it's classed as a prequel, I do consider this a book one, because I would recommend everyone to jump into this first before you jump into The Black Tongue Thief. Here we have the story of Galva, and she is part of the Corvid Knight Corps in the army. So all of the horses have been slaughtered and killed during the Goblin Wars by a disease manufactured by Goblin shamans. And The Daughter's War is a story of Galva taking her Corvid Knights, so her giant ravens, over the sea to fight in the Goblin Wars. And it's called The Daughter's War because so many men had died, so many of the soldiers, the males in the families had died before this, that the societies were forced to call upon their daughters to fight in the war. And it is such a powerful book. It's so impactful. I find it has the best that kind of grimdark fantasy can offer in the world building, and the best that like David Gemmell-esque heroic fantasy can offer in the character.
It's
of
a
Galva.
lovely amalgamation.
It really is. She has some serious flaws. She has some faults, but she is so noble and in her cause, and you cannot help but love how earnest she is as a character. The goblins here are genuinely horrifying. And Kristoff Buehlman comes from a horror background. I recently read his book, The Lesser Dead, which is a vampire story. And that, like, the horror elements of that are incredible. But he is able to incorporate this into a fantasy world to kind of reskin goblins, and gives them this whole sense of society and culture. Everything from the language to the way that their anatomy works to the way that they eat and the way that they farm humans, and that the way that they torture humans in villages to kind of keep them as cattle. They cut the tendon in their leg so they can never face the goblins. It's incredible, and seeing Galva's story alongside her brothers in the Daughters' War is just one of the best things I've ever read. Now, if you like Between Two Fires...
It's what epic fantasy should be.
It really is. If you like Between Two Fires, which is Kristoff Buehlman's most popular book, this has a very similar tone. So please dive in. It's one of the most important books I've read ever.
I agree. And it's my favourite use of unreliable narrator ever.
Ooh, interesting.
Next up, I've got one which is probably my now go-to kind of beginner fantasy recommendation, and that is Jade City, book 1 of the Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee. This has been related to The Godfather. I don't really think so. I actually think book 2 and 3 are much more like The Godfather, but not book 1. You've got a family who are...
They are
like a
green,
gang.
don't they?
Yeah, they do. They are a gang. They are a clan. And this is a world which is fueled by Jade. And so Jade can be used to fuel magic. Basically, it makes you stronger. You can perceive things. But only certain people can. And so we are thrown into a world where this country has faced invasion. And it was almost conquered, and now it has been reclaimed, and we're following the generation after. And so all these different clans united during the invasion, and now we've got the next generation who don't feel that loyalty to each other. So things are starting to divide again. You've got that very unique magic system of the Jade. You've got characters in an academy learning how to use it, and you've got the older characters who are kind of firmly in the world, and they know how to use it. And we kind of learn, there's a lot of shocks in book 1 as we realise how this magic system works. It's not a heavy magic system, but it's one that does shock you and does feel like a character. It's multi-POV, so whilst I'd say in book 1 there isn't one extraordinary character, there's 4 or 5. Every POV is interesting and you feel hooked and they're compelling and you're interested in their story. It's one that not just this book, but the series rides on twists and turns, things you cannot predict, in a good way. They're not jarring, they're really shocking, but in a way that elevates the story. I thought with how many fantasy books I've read, I can be surprised, but not as often as this series does, in a way which I enjoyed. And so it is kind of a family legacy, family, what's it called?
Saga.
A family saga, that's it. And so it is the Greenbone Saga.
Generational trauma.
Wow. And yeah, and this series is fantastic. Jade City, I'd say, is probably the weakest of the 3, but still really, really strong. And one that I really recommend to beginner fantasy readers, as well as veterans, because it's very easy to get into, it's very accessible, and right from the start, it's fast-paced.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Yeah.
That's Jade City.
Talking of fast pace, we need to talk about Red Rising, which is book 1 of the Red Rising saga. Now, Red Rising, is it sci-fi? Is it fantasy? It doesn't matter. This is the Roman rebellion on Mars with breakneck pacing and more tragedy than a Shakespearean play. This is the book for everyone. Now,
that is a pitch, Ed.
Thank you very much. This is kind of a, well, people say a Hunger Games style fantasy, which I do happen to agree with because it has a kind of a battle royale section towards the end. But I think Red Rising is so much more than just being in the Hunger Games shadow. It's something that can stand alongside it.
What it does, it has the Hunger Games with political intrigue
Yeah.
during the game. Whereas in the Hunger Games, you've got that kind of before, the politics, kind of that dynamic, trying to survive, playing the game.
Yeah.
But then when they're in there, it's about survival.
Yeah.
Whereas this is also about politics, characterization, plot progression, learning about the world, and it's fueled by vengeance.
And I think it feels like a fantasy book that is in a sci-fi dystopian setting. Red Rising has the main character of Darrow, and he is living on Mars. Now, the caste system in the world is that depending on your colour, it leads you to forcing you to kind of live in a certain way. That is what your life is. So
the Reds are the miners.
Darrow is a red, so he's the blue collar worker. He's the miner. Then you have the Golds who control society, and they are basically the Roman nobles, the Senate. And then you have lots of different colours in between. Now, Darrow, his wife is murdered, and as kind of a sign, similar to maybe the beginning of Braveheart, really. And that sign sparks Darrow wanting to infiltrate the Gold's system.
He wants some good old-fashioned revenge.
He wants revenge, and he wants to dish it out in a very chilly dish. And he does a decent job of it at some point, but how he does it, maybe. Does he do it? Red Rising is fantastic. The pacing is completely crazy. What I love about it is how Pierce Brown is able to craft a lot of the side characters that Darrow meets along the way. No matter what colour they are, they always have quite a large impact, and they do become like these kind of icons of fantasy, don't they? It's a very quotable series. The dialogue is absolutely superb, and I can very quickly fall behind, get behind a quest for, revenge and vengeance. I love it. And Darrow seeking revenge, there's not many books out there that can top that.
It's quite, because something we can all relate to is being angered by injustice. And so that really relates you to a character. It's like cheating. And then the strongest part of Red Rising, I'd say, is the characters. So that carries you along the wave of emotions.
Absolutely.
Next up, I've got some historical fantasy, and that is The Judas Blossom by Stephen Aryan. This is book 1 of The Nightingale and the Falcon. Shamefully, again, I haven't read book 2 yet, but I will be soon. This is fantastic. We're looking at the Mongol Empire at its peak. Peak! We're not birds here. So the Mongol Empire at its peak before it maybe fractures, or does it get stronger and carry on? Maybe. I won't spoil history, but of course we've got a fantastical element. So we're looking at areas that have been conquered. We've got resistances, orders, some who are magic, some who are not, some seeking revenge, some seeking order. We've got characters from all echelons of society. We've got someone who's been forced to marry a very high official of the Mongol Empire. We've got someone who is somehow dragged into serving them. We've got others that are assassins, and those who are just trying to survive. And that's something that I adore at Game of Thrones, but I always wished there were characters from a wider selection of society. Almost all of them are nobles or close confidants of the nobles. Where here, we've got those from the highest of society to the bottom, so you really see the social sphere and the consequences of actions are much more kind of impactful, because you see that decisions made by the nobles who you may like, you see how terribly it impacts other people, and it really just creates a very complex characterization, and the politics is done really, really well. There's lots of surprises. The magic isn't too heavy in book 1, but the way it's built up slowly with a lot of gravitas really makes me feel that it'll be far more present in book 2. But the Judas Blossom, so well written, and it needs to be talked about more.
I'm feeling the need to binge that trilogy now.
The need for
thank
speed.
you for that, Will. The need to read. And the next one for me is The Blade itself by Joe Abercrombie.
Grimdark 101.
Plot, who needs it? This book is a whole vibe because of the characters. Abercrombie himself even said the plot is minimal, but he enjoed reading it.
So do I.
If Joe Abercrombie enjoyed reading this, I think you guys will as well. The Blade itself is the story of a barbarian with a conscience. We have a golden-haired Prince Charming with a spectacular chin. And we also have a torturer with minimal teeth. And the way that you are able to somehow relate to all three of those at
crazy.
the same time is crazy.
Unbelievable.
Although my chin isn't quite up to Gisele's standards, and my level of violence isn't quite up to Logan Nine Fingers style.
And your cynicism isn't quite on the scale of Glockter's.
I still love these characters, and I still, sometimes I'm a bit worried that
Yeah.
it feels like I'm reading my inner thoughts on the page. Not all of them though. Let's not go too far. But anyway,
We won't say which ones.
the Blade itself is kind of a retelling of classic fantasy, but with a new skin, with a new approach,
Yeah.
with a new world, with a whole
Taking the
new
mick out of it
voice.
slightly.
And I will say the best thing about Joe Abercrombie's books is his sense of voice, the powerful tone and style that each character has that is unique to them. If I open the book and I read a quote of dialogue or even read a passage, you would be able to guess which character was speaking. You wouldn't even need to guess. You would just know because of how individual these characters feel, right down to the side characters that you meet for only a brief section of the book. Brother Longford, what a guy.
I know.
He just needs to stop his mouth, doesn't he? But that is the thing. There are the cast of characters is like a Tarantino film. They're just very distinguishable, very exciting. And the way that Joe incorporates character ideas and he trickles them in very slowly. When you meet a certain someone very late on in the book, quite a bloody someone, it's one of just the most powerful chapters I've ever read for many, many reasons. But yeah, Joe Abercrombie, his books are iconic, kind of on the same level as J. Kristoff for me. His style of voice, his tone, the dialogue is as sharp as one of Logan Ninefinger's knives, and he has a lot of them because you can never have too many.
You never can. They make you laugh, they make you wince, and they somehow make you fall in love with the torturer. Most authors would settle for one, yet alone all three.
Will, you fell in love with Glockter? No, I will say, me too.
Next up, I've got a book which, what if the bad guys won? That is the premise of We Are the Dead. We're looking at the aftermath of the... Imagine if Sauron won, what would be going on in the Shire? Whilst the people aren't as nice as hobbits...
Is Sharky there?
Not quite. But we're following the aftermath of an invasion where the bad guys have won. And they are pretty horrible. But there's horrible people on both sides. It's not just as clear-cut as good and bad. In We Are the Dead, we've got characters in the rebellion. We've got those that were in the army before and they're rebelling from that side. We've got locals who are fighting just to reclaim their freedom. And we've got those just trying to survive in the mix. And you just feel so sorry for every single one of them. I'm going to give one example of Mike Shackle's creativity. He thought, what is the greatest gift someone could have? And he thought the gift of healing, surely. And he thought, how could that be used for bad? And so you've got the main villain here.
He's kind of nasty man.
Uses his ability to heal people whilst he tortures them. So he tortures them and then heals them so he can do it again. So that is just kind of
quite appropriate the level that you followed the Blade itself on with We Are the Dead.
Yeah, it's true. I feel like that this is obviously very grimdark, but not gratuitous. Joe Abercrombie isn't either, but that makes me wince more.
Yeah.
Whereas this, because you've got parts of characters who are genuinely good as well, there feels like a lot more hope, even though there is so much kind of depravity
I
in
think
here
the
as
Blade
well.
itself gets away with it because it's so funny, and We Are the Dead gets away with it because there are characters who are pure through and through.
Who you're actually rooting for.
Who you really, really root for in this horrible world, and it never feels like too much, does it?
I think this is one of the best books for character arcs where there's a real growth, a real journey that is believable, as well as being really fast-paced. It has those cliffhanger chapters. They're short, they're sharp. They make you want to pick up the next chapter. They make you late for work the next morning because you're so tired you only got 2 hours sleep. That's what the whole series is like, and that kicks off with We Are the Dead, which is just one of the best book ones of all time. Absolutely. Any genre, not just fantasy. And yeah, lovely covers again by The Broken Binding.
Yeah, of course, Broken Binding always hitting it. I need to talk about Blackwing by Ed McDonald. Now, this fantasy is kind of a matchlock or flintlock style fantasy with the main character, Ryholt Galharrow, and he is not quite a Sherlock Holmes character, but he is maybe more like James Bond. You know, he's working for the Secret Service in this world, and you have the world is incredibly grimdark. So it's not extremely populated. The cities of this world are surrounded by this kind of vast landscape of nothingness where these horrendous creatures and the undead live, and no one will go out there. It's kind of like imagine Mad Max.
Nice.
That style world is out there, and Galharrow is forced to seek some answers for the people he works for, and slowly the world is quite intimate, and then slowly the story gets more and more epic as you go further into the book. There are a lot of twists, there are turns, it is a labyrinth style book, and the character of Galharrow is such a unique guy, and he, you know, he's in I think he's in his early 40s or late 30s. He's quite the cynic. He has really great dialogue, and the way that his story progresses, you meet characters that you love, you meet characters that you will really despise as well. And the crescendo of book 1 is completely crazy. It's got some of the strongest writing in a debut that I've ever read. And I definitely think if you want to pick up something that has kind of a mystery style to it, but not too much, in a really grimdark world, then Blackwing is the way to go.
It's one of only 2, that and The Will of the Many, that I haven't read that you've talked about today, Ed.
Wow, Will.
So I'm looking forward to picking that up at some point.
Yeah.
The last book for me is The Children of Gods and Fighting Men by Shauna Lawless. If you love fantasy, you love history, you love mythology, any one of those 3, they're all represented in here. We are thrust into late 10th century, early 11th century Ireland as we look at the history of that time. We've got the dynamic between the Irish and the Vikings and the conflict coming up between them, but also Irish mythology. You've got 2 ancient bands which have an enmity with each other as well. But at the beginning of this, one thinks that they are victorious and they've wiped out the other. Of course, it's not going to be as simple as that. Our main tier POVs, we've got 1 character from each mythological group, and they interact with humanity at the same time. There is political intrigue that is rife across here. Incredible, because we are following mainly female characters who, of course, in this period of patriarchal society, had little to no agency. And so the way that Gemmell, our main character, or one of our main characters, uses what little power she has to have huge ramifications is so clever. But it also causes this constant tension, as you know that she doesn't have to be listened to. And you know that she could lose her influence at any moment. The political intrigue is brilliant. There isn't much action in book 1, but that increases with each installment. And I cannot wait for book 4 to come out this year. But yeah. It's incredible prose, incredible characters, great political intrigue that drags you across the pages and refuses to let go.
And one of our more popular recommendations that that has really landed with quite a lot of people. The last one for me for this video is Traitor's Blade by Sebastien de Castell, book 1 of the Greatcoat series. And it is a story of Falcio, who is a greatcoat, who are kind of in a group, in a society unto themselves, and they are frowned upon by a lot of people, but they are kind of the judge, the jury, and executioners of their society. Falcio has 2 best friends. One is Kest, and one is Brasti.
The best kind of trio bromance in fantasy.
It really is, and this is kind of a play on the 3 Musketeers, but in a fantastical setting.
With a lot of humour.
Hilarious. The bromance is incredible. Falcio is probably the most insufferable main character, but I love him.
You still love it.
I love the way that he is such a flawed person, and he has a hatred of knights, and I won't tell you why, because you find out the further you go into the series, and he has a hatred of a lot of other people as well. But I love the way that these 3 characters, their dynamic is how they all associate with each other, how they love each other, they argue with each other, they hate each other at times, they have fallings out, and Sebastien de Castell weaves this tale with such panache, with such flair, that you cannot help but smile as you are reading it. It can get really dark and really grim at times as well, but there's always this friendship at the core of the series. And, you know, we love Papa Gwynne's books that has this found family aspect at its core, you know, truth and courage. And I think Sebastien Castell's work has that at the core as well, which is why I can relate to it so much.
I completely agree. And Papa Gwynne and Sebastien are firm friends in real life as well. So indeed. That's another reason to pick them up.
Absolutely. It's such a riot. It's so funny. It's kind of grim and pretty dark at some points as well. But it's always exciting. So yeah, go pick up Traitor's Blade by Sebastien de Castell.
That's a great record. And that is all the books we're talking about today. The best first books of a fantasy series. At some point, we'll probably do a video talking about the best conclusions to the series, so the ones that are really worth your time.
We've made sure all of these... Best book 3s, best book 4s.
Exactly, we'll just do each one. But we've made sure all of these, we also enjoy the ending, or if they're ongoing series, we've enjoyed them up to date. And so then we're not saying, oh yeah, book 1's great, We hate the ending.
Yeah, the rest are shit.
Yeah. So there we go. That is the best book ones of fantasy. Thank you so much for watching. Let us know the ones you think we missed out, the ones we need to pick up, and any other recommendations. Thank you so much for watching. Truth and Courage, The Brothers Gwynne.
Truth and Courage, The Brothers Gwynne.